You're listening to the Cantina Cast, your home for thought-provoking Star Wars talk. Join Albert and Chris in breaking down the latest news, trailers, movies, TV shows, games, books, and of course, your favorite characters from a galaxy far, far away.
Hello, Patreon members, and hello, Chris. Welcome back, sir.
Yep, I'm back into the friendly confines of Casa Cavazos. So.
Yeah, I can tell. Background is much more active than last night's background.
Right, and from the tomb or the cell or whatever you said, I was locked
unknown,
in at the time.
The bunker.
Yeah, the bunker, exactly, yeah, from Parts Unknown.
Parts Unknown, yep. Hey, this is episode 648, and tonight we're going to talk about Balance of the Force, a show that I had to keep kicking down the road here because of one thing or another. But yeah, if we're finally here to talk about it, this should be fun to talk about because honestly, it's, again, I know I've said this before, but just to recap, you know, it's a topic that has come up a number of times, just kind of organically in conversations. We've done some episodes in the past, like Master and Apprentice. We did a Mortis trilogy arc breakdown of all three of those episodes, and we talked heavily about the balance of the Force there, but we've never actually had a show that was dedicated to that as the main topic discussion. Yeah, I think it's about time. So we'll get into all that here in just a second. But before we do, I want to say thank you to all of you guys. First off, if you're listening or you're watching, however you're getting the Patreon episode today, thank you so much for your support and for keeping this show going. I want to say special thanks to our now part of the tribe members, and that's Alex, Danny, Dante, Daz. I've got a Brad feeling. Jackson, Jacob, Josh, Mike Borda, Paisley, Rita Reborn, Sharkman Dan, Uncle Leon, and Will I Am. And then our Delusions of Grandeur members, which are now This Is Rod Racing, Steve and Rob. So thank you again for everything you guys do there. Please recommend us to a friend too if you get a chance. Let them know that we're out there and they can tune in. I've been putting a lot of stuff on the free. What am I trying to say? I've been putting a lot of stuff on Patreon that has been free. So even free members have been getting some things here and there. So I'm trying to do more of that. So even if they don't want to, log in and pay for anything, if they want to join the free stuff, there's still content there for them as well. So, okay. As far as show notes go or show schedules go, we've got the Sunday show coming up here. That'll be a Patreon show. I don't know. We were kind of toying with the idea of the second issue of Maul. What's the name of that one? It's not Shadow Lord. It's Lord of
Shadows or something like that.
Yeah, whatever it is.
Whatever. The second issue of the Maul comic book.
Yeah, that's just out. So we'll be that just came in, and I had a chance to read it. I don't know if you saw it yet.
I haven't
Chris.
seen it yet.
Okay, I won't spoil anything. All
right, great. Thank you.
But yeah, so we may do something like that. Maybe we'll make those kind of exclusive at this point. I think the very first episode or issue we did was a public one, but we may keep those behind the paywall so you guys can have exclusive insight into what's going on with there prior to the show. And then of course we'll be back on Monday next week to do both of the next two episodes of Maul Shadow Lord, which Chris and I just did a full breakdown last night. If you haven't had a chance to listen to that or watch it, please go do so. And do like and subscribe and comments and all that other fun stuff that you guys do on the YouTubes. Okay, let's do this. Let's talk about the Chosen One prophecy. And so what I did is, there's been a lot of discussion about the prophecy of the Chosen One, and specifically how that equates to balance of the Force, because it does come up in that prophecy. The way I would contextualize this is we really didn't get any kind of sense of we didn't get any note of balance of the Force or meaning of balance of the Force. It wasn't until we got to the Phantom Menace. Prior to that, it was light side, dark side. When we were talking about is the dark side stronger episode, there were a lot of times whenever the Force was mentioned during the original trilogy, it was kind of agnostic. It was just the power of the Force. And then as episode 2 came out, or episode 2 in my head, Empire Strikes Back came out, then Return of the Jedi, it started getting more specific about light side and dark side. And it's just kind of taken that next evolution by the time we came back to the Phantom Menace and took on this whole kind of, persona of having balance, being a light side and a dark side. And we'll get into some of what that means. But really, when the Phantom Menace came out, it was almost kind of it was almost running parallel to the midichlorians, right? The
Mhm.
symbiotic relationship of that, and then you had the symbiotic relationship that existed between the Gungans and the Naboo. There was a lot of different parallels, and and Lucas was kind of doing that all intentionally. But I remember when this whole concept of balance of the Force came out, there really wasn't a lot there outside of the prophecy and that Anakin would restore balance to the galaxy,
Mhm.
or to the Force, I should say. I guess maybe go back in time. What was your first take on this, if you remember? And would you say it's changed or evolved over the years? You don't necessarily need to, you can spill the beans now because we're going to get into other people's interpretations as well. But how's that evolved for you, or has it evolved for you ever since you saw the Phantom Menace and heard Balance of the Force?
So when we first heard "Balance of the Force," we heard it at during the first Phantom Menace trailer, when Mace Windu said, uh, "You believe like this child, is the prophecy or the one that will bring balance to the Force. You believe
Mhm.
it's this boy." And immediately my mind went to, okay, the balance that he brought was, the we know how, we knew how the prequels ended. We all did. We were there for the story between, Anakin and the time he became Vader. So we knew how it was going to end. My mind immediately went to, okay, he was the one that ended Palpatine. Therefore, he brought balance. That was what I initially thought it meant. And for the longest time, probably for 10 years after that, that was my belief, was that that's what balance of the Force meant, was that it was unbalanced because, the Sith, the Empire, were the powerful, I guess, Force faction, and they were bringing tyranny down to the galaxy, and Vader coming back, being redeemed by Luke, coming back to the light, and essentially at the time we thought destroying Palpatine. That is what brought the balance back. So that's what I always thought balance of the Force was. Now, has it evolved a little bit? Yes, but I do still believe, and we'll get into more detail. I do still believe that it's not just what a lot of fans now, and a lot of people that actually have spoken on what balance of the Force is. It's not about how much dark side and light side there is. They believe that balance of the Force means that, like, life flows, how life flows. If the way life flows through the Force is calm and at peace, and it's its natural progression, and we'll get to where that comes from as well, that's balance. And I kind of can agree with that, but I have no doubt that these beings that show up during the Star Wars or the Skywalker saga, they are part of the balance as well. And we'll get into that. But to answer their first question, is that's what I immediately thought balance of the Force meant, is that at the end of Return of the Jedi, Vader destroys Palpatine, and that brings balance back. So that's immediately where my mind went to.
Yeah, and I would agree. Like I think it was clean cut back then. I
Mhm.
think life was so much simpler when it came to Star
Oh,
Wars, right?
those were the days,
Those were
man.
the
Those were the
days.
days. Yep.
And now you've got so much context out there and content out there and different interpretations. And, without Lucas in charge now, it's kind of, people have been allowed to go out and, seek different and alternative interpretations of the prophecy and what
Hmm.
balance truly means. And, whether is it good to have dark side and light side in you, or is it pure? Should you always be a pure at heart and be striving for only the light side, as the Jedi, claim or try to be? And so the full prophecy, just for the sake of discussion, didn't really, they mentioned the prophecy again in episode 1. It comes back up again in episode 3. I guess mainly when Luke, or when Kenobi tells him you were supposed to bring balance to the Force, or restore the what was it? Not the Jedi, kill the Jedi, or whatever it was. Not become
Yeah.
not. I'm screwing up that whole
No, no.
quote.
You were supposed to bring balance to the Force, not bring it to darkness.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
or
that was,
something like that. Yeah.
yeah, whatever. And the point is, like, when that quote came out, that was really the only other reference that we had in it. Qui-Gon was a stout believer that he was the chosen one.
Chosen one, right?
And then later on, it wasn't until we got to the Master and Apprentice novel by Claudia Gray that we got the full quote, as it was prophesized years and years and years ago. And that reads, it's a little bit different, but still the same kind of concept here. that chosen one prophecy reads as a chosen one shall come, born of no father, and through him will ultimate balance in the force be restored. So not only does it say that balance will be, it's like ultimate balance will be restored. Um, and I'll get into some other context here during Master of Apprentice as well. That's a wonderful book. I know we've talked about it. We did a whole breakdown on it, but I mean, if you really are into the Force and the Master and Apprentice relationship, Qui-Gon Jinn, his beliefs. That book is rich with all kinds of content and interpretations, including Rael Averroes, who I will bring up here in just a little bit. But Claudia Gray kind of gave us that one, so I think it's pretty much the same thing. I don't know if she really meant anything by saying ultimate balance in the Force. I don't think it necessarily changes anything or any perspective there. But I want to just kind of cut to the chase and talk about kind of George Lucas's interpretation. He's actually out there. If you go watch some of the videos, there's at least two that I'm aware of. And then there's other things that he says that you can apply the same type of belief. I mean, he's had the same thought around what true balance of the Force means ever since, Return of the Jedi, quite honestly. He just reinforces that during the Phantom Menace. But his quote is this, and this is kind of, and well, I'll give you the quote and then I'll give you my take on it. It says, you got the dark side, you got the light side. One is selfless, one is selfish, and you want to keep them in balance. So he's saying you got to keep the light side and the dark side in balance. Right there, just literally, you think, okay, it's these scales. You know what I mean? You got to keep light and dark side. But then listen to the next part. He says, what happens is when you go to the dark side, it goes out of balance. And then you get really selfish and then you forget about everybody. He also goes on a little bit later in another quote and says, balance is essentially the absence of the dark side. So in George Lucas's mind, the creator, right, his mind was of that if you, once the dark side has made itself known or exists, that puts the balance of Force out of balance. It's now unbalanced because the dark side exists and it persists. Vader, Anakin Skywalker, was restored balance to the Force because he killed Palpatine. He killed, he died. And by that, now the Sith, the dark side people, were gone. And so balance was restored, right? He fulfilled the chosen one prophecy because the last two Sith, the last two Darksiders were gone. And it's as simple as that. Like, and on the surface, that makes absolute sense, I think, for me. But there's still a lot of interpretations about, whether whether there's a scale thing, right? You think of like work-life balance, right? For anybody that's got a corporate job, right? They always talk about work-life balance. You got to have your work stuff, and that's like the dark side. And then you got all the fun stuff that you do with your family and your personal time. That's kind of like the light side of things. And so they want to make sure that those are an equal balance. And so you don't feel like one is going too heavy or, if it's too dark side, then, you're unhappy in your personal life. And if it's too light side, then, you're not as productive at work. So they want to make sure that they keep that in balance. And I think for most people, we kind of conceptualize the balancing, like we can see that there's a visual scale there that exists, but that's not what George Lucas's intent was. Now, that said, and I'll get your take on that too, but that said, we're going to show you we're going to talk about a couple of examples from Lucas and from Filoni himself, where there's kind of a contradiction to that. Like it's still gray there in some terms. But anyways, what's your take, I guess, on Lucas's interpretation, or I guess the interpretation for some people, that the dark side is, or the Force is unbalanced anytime that the dark side exists?
So yeah, this quote kind of reinforces what I initially believed when the whole balance of the Force concept was introduced, is that, hey, you have these dark side people, and with them around doing their thing, causing chaos, causing pain, hurt, everything the dark side brings, the Force is out of balance. And the only way you can return to balance is if those individuals who practice in the dark side are removed. And this says this here. So essentially saying, no, I'm not talking about balancing on a scale. We're saying that you have good and evil. And as long as evil is present and powerful, meaning that I like to take it one step further, and meaning that evil has the upper hand, because there's always evil. right? There's always evil in any galaxy, any universe, right? But when the evil has the upper hand, that is when you're out of balance. And therefore, it takes individuals working on the light side of the force to try to correct it by removing these people that have the power, that practice in the dark side. And once they're gone, balance is achieved. That has been my understanding, or I should say that was my understanding back starting in 1998 when the first trailer came out, right?
Yeah.
But then, like you said, we're going to get some other takes where, maybe it's not as black and white as that. Maybe that was the beginning. Lucas's take on balance of the force was the beginning of the whole balance theory, and everything else that comes after it, from Filoni and whatnot, actually complete that whole, I guess, theory of what balance of the force means. And that's where I say, hey, yeah, my overall thought of what balance of the force means has changed. But yeah, we'll get into that. But immediately when you read this quote from George Lucas, it pretty much affirms what I thought way back in the late 90s.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and yeah, the absence of the dark side is his definition of balance. And I think where people took this and started to kind of go into different interpretations was that line I mentioned where he says that you want to keep them in balance. So you think about it. So another way you could kind of visualize is, let's say you have a scale and you've got all of the bad stuff that people do, not dark side users, but just bad stuff, right? And let's call them tiny little pebbles. And you put those little pebbles in there. And then you've got all the good stuff that people do, not these glorious, heroic acts the Jedi do. We're not saving lives or anything, but just good deeds and that sort of thing. And those are pebbles too. And you put those on the other side of the scale. That in itself is just kind of like the level playing ground that happens all day, every day, and it stays at balance. For Lucas, his interpretation is you can fill up that left-hand side with all the little light side pebbles with Jedi, and they're doing amazing things. And the scales continue to stay balanced. The minute you put two dark side users on the dark side side of the scale, it shifts and it's no longer balanced. You know what I mean? That was his interpretation, and that's why Vader had to go and Palpatine had to go. But it kind of then has morphed or evolved. And I would say this is, I think for me, and you can speak to your own experience or how you've interpreted, but I think for me, I've noticed that a lot of that started to shift when Disney came in. And it's not just Disney themselves. Like it was kind of a wave or a movement that started around in the 2000s where people were in just all kinds of media, not necessarily Star Wars, but other things, where it turned into this thing of like, hey, we all acknowledge that we're bad and we all acknowledge that we make mistakes and that there's evil or darkness in all of us. But what we do with that, and it's whether or not we choose to acknowledge it and act upon it, that really sets us apart from the good guys, or sets us apart from the bad guys. And so I kind of called this modern Star Wars take.
Hey everyone, you've been listening to a preview of this Patreon exclusive episode. If you'd like to hear the full episode, as well as a huge back catalog of other Patreon exclusive material, head on over to patreon.com/CantinaCast and sign up for the We Are All the Republic tier at just $2 a month. That'll get you all of the audio episodes, or if video is your thing, please consider the This Is the Way tier at just $5 a month. There's also two higher tiers in Now Part of the Tribe and Delusions of Grandeur, which gets you a shout out at the start of every show, your name in the credits at the end, and more. Thank you so much to all of our Patreon members and all of our supporters, and may the Force be with you always.
You're still listening? Wow. That's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property and all that other good, fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me, and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.